G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name's James, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. Today I'm going old school art journaling, and by that I mean I've just put every single art supply I've ever owned at my desk and I'm ready to get wild with it. Who knows what's going to happen, but I want to play with so many things. I get this feeling I want to do it, and then I put everything out and then I end up choosing like one or two mediums and I stick with it and then I get really precious. It's a whole weird thing. All the other times where I don't plan on doing it, I do end up bringing in all the mediums. So it's just like who knows? Reverse psychology for me. But anyway, I'm going to give it a red hot go because I feel like it's been a while since I've got really painterly and messy for no reason at all, but just to have fun. I have some photo inspiration here. These are photos that my husband took. This is his friend from work, Matisse, and she's like one of the most unbothered faces I've ever seen in life. I was at this photo shoot. It's like a whole Mexican inspired photo shoot. I think he titled it Muñeca. I'm not sure if he's shared it by the time you'll be seeing this video, hopefully, but he's put these on his TikTok, so I'm not really spoiling anything. Anyway, I thought they were really beautiful. There's a whole ton of photos. I've chosen these three. I really like the pose in this one. I love how unbothered that face looks, and it's a nice front-facing face. This one's slightly a bit more tilted, but I love this pose too. Who knows how we're going to incorporate it, but I've got the inspiration. That's where I'm going with it. I want lots of color, lots of medium, lots of texture, lots of pattern, lots of play, lots. More is more with me and art journaling. So let's just get into it. I'm going to do it real time as well, so you can follow along. Please feel free to do what you need to do. Yeah, I think we'll just get started drawing. I'm going to kind of speak you through the process. I hope it goes well. Otherwise I'm going to lead you down a garden path to something disgusting. But who knows? We'll get somewhere, won't we? I've got this Neocolor 2. This is a water-soluble wax pastel. This is a light beige color. I think I'm going to start with maybe this over the shoulder because we can really zoom up into that face. It's a little bit off tilt, like it's not perfectly straight. I'm just going to put the lines for the face on there. That shoulder comes over the chin, round off that back. Now everything in my illustration kind of gets a little stylized, so this doesn't have to have a likeness to Matisse. I'm just using it as inspiration. Pardon me, I hope my voice doesn't go. We got an ear, put that on there, a neck that peeks out there. Now I'm just going to put the relative positions of the features on, like there's the lips, there's the nose, the eyes. I'm going to pull those eyes down a little bit. That looks good. Some eyebrows. I don't want to flesh all that detail in just yet because I'm going to get some other mediums. I'm going to kind of draw with all the different mediums. Some are water reactive like this, so when I get the paint on there, it's all going to move around and it'll disappear, and others will not. However, if you've ever tried to draw someone's likeness, I don't love doing that because it is quite difficult, and I don't really set out to challenge myself every time I sit down to draw. It really is hard to sell it without shadows. So give yourself a ton of grace while you're drawing it all, because when there's no shadows on there, you might not be seeing it. Let's pop that underarm detail in there. She's got this gorgeous off-the-shoulder dress, which I just love. One of my favorite silhouettes is a sweetheart neckline, but also an off-the-shoulder portrait style moment. I just love the décolletage. Now, I don't love drawing hands, but this hand over the shoulder is just speaking to me. So let's draw an implied version of those fingers over the shoulder. They don't have to be perfect, but I like her uñas. Put those in there. Fab. Ears, everything, hair. I can put the braid on there. I don't know if I want to do the braid because I don't think I want to just copy this photo. I think what I want to do is put something else around, like kind of like a halo type thing, maybe some petal shapes or something explosive. We can go a little bit Frida Kahlo-esque because I feel like that'll inspire me to have lots of colors. So I'm going to put some petals around there for now and more of that ruffle. Great. All right, let's get rid of that. I wonder if we should grab a pencil now. I think I want like a sepia toned pencil. Got a whole bunch of these Derwent pencils here. What color is this? Sienna. That might work nicely. I'm going to flesh out a bit more of the details. I don't really want to neaten up just yet, but I want to get a good relative understanding of where everything's going. So I'm going to unbothered those eyes a little bit. The trick with those little unbothered eyes that I love is really cutting off the top part of the eye, so sinking that lash line down over the iris and the pupil, and it closes off a lot of the eye. Generally, when the eye is really closed, it's a little bit more alluring. It can look really sleepy. I find that some really angled brows help make it look dreamy rather than sleepy, but sleepy is a nice look as well. You can also bring the bottom lid up, but that's tricky unless you're going to add a lot of detail. And I never really add too much detail at the bottom of the eye. I'm going to accentuate her eyes because when we were shooting in the studio, Steve was just so captivated by her eyes and her eye makeup. And so I feel like that was something he really accentuated. So I want to get that in there. Again, just cutting off the top of that eye. I always end up going a little bit more dramatic. Even if I'm trying to be as close to a reference, I'll still push it a little bit. I've got the nostrils. The reason I really like photo references when I do use them is that you get to see really specific kind of nuances about face and different features. Like, even though this is tilted, you can see the difference between the openings in the nostrils and things like that. I don't commit to memory because that's specific to a certain face and a certain tilt of the head. So when you're drawing just from memory, you end up drawing a generic version of that. But when you actually have a reference, you can be a little bit more specific, like even trying to mimic the shape of the nostrils and the shape of the shadows. I'll be honest, the only reason I would really ever stick too close to a reference is because I want to copy the shadow areas. So here I'm going to put in this nose. It's kind of the tip of the nose into the brow bone shadow. It's got that train track running lines in there. I'm going to pop that in. I might want to do it in a different color, but for now I'll just lightly shade it in. That little tip of the nose shadow there. There's a touch of the shadow under the nose, a touch of shadow on the outside of the eyes. You want to be careful not to go too far into the eyes. It'll just look like heavy bags. And there is a good portion of the shadow on this part of the face. If you do art and you draw and you use shadows, you're a pretty good assistant to have in a photo studio. I've found out. Steve really likes it because we do a lot of shaping light when we're drawing. We don't really know that's what we're doing, but we kind of contour faces in with our shadows. And so when we're in the studio and Steve is using studio lighting, it's a lot of shaping the light around the face in different ways. Some ways to really accentuate fine lines and features, like in those really heavy gritty photo, like black and white photos, and you want all the texture in there. Then other times we do it to, slightly like soften the face, and sometimes you want really hard shadows, and yeah, it's really interesting. Rembrandt lighting is a term that I've come across, and Rembrandt was an artist. And so photography and art, photography is an art, but especially illustration, tend to be cross-disciplinary. Is that a term? Let's call it that. Matisse had the most gorgeous Cupid's bow and lips. I really have to say she's become one of my muses. I can't help it. Sorry to Matisse. But it was just so bizarre because I'm looking at her in real life and I'm like, you have a face that I draw. Does anyone else have that? Have you ever seen someone that looks like the face that you draw? There's so many of the preferences about the faces that I draw. It was just literally standing there right in front of me. It was so interesting. When Steve first met her, actually, he was like, oh, I have to show you this girl at work because I think you would really like to get her in the studio and play. Because honestly, that's a lot of the time what we're doing in there is we're just playing in the studio. Like, this shoot was really just about play. And we like to play with people that are our muses, but Steve has a kind of different looking muse than I have, and so he really picked Matisse out for me, I think. But when we got her in there and started playing, he was so happy with how it all turned out. And he has so many good images, which is the problem with sharing on social media, is that you have so much to share, but with photography, like, Steve spreads out his posts. He doesn't like to keep them too close together because he's like, you can draw something and post it that same day. When I do a photo shoot, like, sometimes it can take days to do the photo shoot, to upload them all, to edit them. And then he's like, and then, you know, you're trying to get onto the next shoot, but it doesn't just happen right away. So he kind of spaces out his sharing. I just dump everything on there every 5 seconds. So if you don't see all of these photos on his Instagram anytime soon, just know that he'll eventually post them, I'm sure. Right, that's looking great. So now I've etched in all the features. I still don't want to be too precious about how it's all going. So what I'm going to do is splash a whole bunch of watercolor everywhere. Because if I see something looking neat, there is this kind of temptation to stay neat with the whole photo. And I don't want that. So I can move my my hand back on my, what are they called? My brushes and my pencils, and get a little more expressive with it. Some of that cream is going to blend away, that first color that we put on there. And I think, do you know what? That water is blue for some reason. I'm going to use this kind of flat brush, because I just want to swipe the paint on. I don't really want to paint it. I just want a whole bunch of color on here. I don't mind if all the tones blend together. Let's get some red. Yeah, that's interesting, don't you think? Put some red on the cheeks. Just want to be expressive. I think I want some of this green. And blue. Maybe some of these blues. I don't really have any hot pink in there. Let me grab this little palette over here. I just want a whole bunch of hot pink. Oh, that's pretty. Put it on the outside. Because that watercolor was not super liquid when I put it down, you get all those little brush strokes in there, which is nice. Right, I don't want to run everything together. Let's put a bit of purple around the eyes. I feel like that would look nice. Purple in the shadows is always really fun, so let's pop some purple where those shadows were. I know we've just spent all that time drawing, but this will dry down a touch lighter, so I don't think we'll have lost everything yet. No need to panic just yet. But I also have gouache. I can go over the whole thing in gouache if I want. Make her skin tone a little bit richer. Some of this vintage, I think it's called vintage orange actually. It's a nice warm brown. I tend to use warmer browns for medium to dark skin tones, and then cooler browns for deep dark skin tones. I just find it works better with the colors that I mix with them. What do I want to do this part? I want this brush again. I like this teal. Not teal. Malachite. This is a fun brush. Oh, that's pretty. That blue. Just gonna move that around everywhere. I think I want some of that blue up here in those eyes. All right, let's try that with the heat tool for a second, see what can be done. We encourage some of these colors to blend together a little bit by using the air to kind of force it over, but this is layer one of what I'm assuming is going to be a bunch of different layers, so I don't tend to commit to any of this and marry it just yet. I just like to see what the colors do. even as you're going, like these big kind of damp areas, if you put some clean water in there, you can get all of that watercolor to separate. That's a really nice texture. It's better if you let it air dry, but you can also heat it. See how it forces out that color? Kind of bleaches it here. I also like to pull on the paper slightly as it dries, just because it really buckles between the heat and the water. There you go. Anything that just takes too long to dry, I'm so lazy, I just blot it back up. There we go. All right, now I have a whole bunch of gouache over here. I think I'm just gonna pop it straight onto this page. I'm gonna use some white. Gouache is like a really, really opaque watercolor, so you just need a bit of water to mix it together, and then I'm gonna just blend it around the page and see what it does. Let me use this brush. Specifically, I want to just kind of put it in my highlight areas. There were no really obvious highlights on this drawing, so I'm just going to brush it really quickly over the eyes. I actually like that texture, that kind of dry brush texture. But because it is water-based, and if you make it too thin and scrub it into the page, you will start to reactivate stuff that's underneath. So that's just something to note. Let's see if there was a highlight on the lips anywhere. Up here. And across here. The tip of the nose. Got a ton on the eyes already. A little bit on the chin. These ones aren't as obvious, those highlights, so I might just get some water and just scrub those in a touch. Let that blend in. And I might just run over those fingers a little bit just because they get a little lost. Oh, I'm liking this. Look at all those colors. All right. I think that'll do for the gouache. What else do I want to use? I got pencils. I've used the pencil. I might go with more pencil, actually. I like pencil texture. Maybe I'll grab this kind of lilac color. What is this called? Heather. This is called Heather, and I'm going to scrub this into some of these shadow areas again. Well, I might want to dry the gouache first. I usually spend a lot of time working on the face because if I don't like the face, I'll usually abandon it, and I'll get a pretty good idea of whether I'm going to like it or not. You know, a bit of a ways into the process, and I would rather abandon it before I worked everywhere around the face and then decided I didn't like the main part of it. If any of that made sense. I work on the face first so I can abandon it if I don't like it, but also we didn't set any specific goal for this, so I can't imagine I would abandon it unless I just wasn't having a good time. But that's a me problem. It's the nails. All right, let's get those eyes in there. This color is called purple. What an interesting name for a color. These are Derwent Lightfast pencils. So these would be great if you were trying to do work that you wanted to display because they're not going to fade over time. However, I don't really care about that. I'm not really looking for archival quality art supplies anymore. I used to, because I felt like something being archival and light fast was synonymous with quality, and it typically is. You're not going to find a ton of cheaper, you know, children's craft supplies, and even some student grade art supplies aren't really going to be light fast. But also, if it's not, like, I'm not going to stop myself from buying it just because I don't plan on displaying any of my work like that. So I don't want to limit myself with what I can and can't use just because it's not going to hold up to the sun, when in reality this page is going to stay closed for 99% of the time. You'll only really see the sunlight when someone looks through it. I'm just going to hit the darkest areas, which are the nostrils, the inner line of the mouth, even the side of the nostrils, really. The eyes, just want to, I don't want to line it, but I want to make sure that it looks really neat there, because that makes the face kind of pop out amongst everything else that's really hectic. Even the top of the ear and the inner ear detail I like to pop out just a little bit. Where is that? That other ear has disappeared into the page. It's right here. And I do want it. So just some of that shadow in the ear. Doesn't have to match all the other color. You can see we've got a bunch of purple here, which had a big earring on. I might just add the back of this shoulder and the front. This is looking really pretty. I feel like I should just leave it at this. I mean, I'm happy with it. It has all that beautiful color that I was going for. I think I might want to work on the eyes a little bit more just to make them, you know, really nice and alluring. Let's grab some deeper watercolor maybe. I like lots of watercolor around the eyes. Made a bunch of textures really. You want to pull a lot of focus to something, just add a bunch of color and depth and texture, and usually our eyes will just gravitate towards it. See, that gouache is kind of reactivating a little bit. I don't mind. This teal. Put that in the eyes. My goal right now is just to add a ton of color, even yellow, I think. Really tropical colors too. Yellow, orange, teal, hot pink, hibiscus. Gorgina. A whole rainbow in her eyes. Oh, I'm loving that. Guys, I'm so excited. By the time you see this, I'll probably be there, but I'm going to Australia next week. And I am so excited. My sister's getting married. Steve and Stella are going. Steve's going to shoot the wedding. Stella's going to do Siobhan's makeup. That's my sister. We're going to Southwest Rocks, which is going to be amazing. I just add a little bit more color to these lips. Part of me wants to do them red, but I think that's going to be too bold and steal too much attention away from the eyes. So I'm just going to put the red at the bottom, blend it out a touch. Anyway, so I'm stoked about that. Tonight I actually have a rehearsal that starts at 8 p.m. and finishes at 5 a.m. which is going to be really interesting for me. I have been trying to prepare throughout the week to be ready to stay up all night. The other night I didn't get to sleep until 5, so I thought, well, you know, I'm there. I should be able to manage, but it has been a long time since I've done an overnight rehearsal. literally since 2011. I think that was my last overnight rehearsal experience. Anyway, I'm loving this. Do you know what I just realized? She's got no eyebrows. Let's fix that. Just flash cure that, as the nail artists would say. I just like to make sure it's dry because it does become a problem when you're trying to use pencil over the top of soggy, kind of wet paper. I'm using this mild liner to pop the eyebrow in. It is water-based, so it should move some of that. Oh goodness, the light just changed so dramatically. Sorry if the light's all off on this video. It's really pretty when it's overcast and it's just soft light, but then the sun comes out and it just brightens everything. And there's really nothing I can do, so hopefully the auto feature's figuring it out. The water-based marker should just push around some of those other layers. And I do want to add a little bit of color to the eyebrow. This is turquoise green. Turquoise. That is gorgeous. She's giving like rainbow lorikeet, which I'm not mad at. I felt like I was going to do a big headpiece type thing, but I don't even know anymore. Like, is there a point to doing any of that? Because I think she just looks so beautiful in all of those colors. I prefer not to. You know what? I should listen to my own intuition. If I'm finished, I'm finished. Stop. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to allure the eyes a little bit. It's a verb now. To allure. I'm just going to close off the top of that eye. Shade in just around the edges. Flick out a few flanges. I don't really need them to be prominent. And then grab, hopefully, a dark indigo. This is a blue violet, that's great. And I'm going to add the pupil in there. You notice we've not used any black. We just use really dark shades of color. And because there's so much other color and it's so light and bright around it, this just looks really dark. When in reality, this is just kind of like a dark blue. It's not even a black. Balancing all of those values, having that color contrast is what helps make everything kind of separate and pop out even when you're not lining at all. We put little lines in here so you could kind of see it, but you see our chin isn't even connected here? I call this process, I forgot what I first called it. It's either sharpening or refining or something. I use different terms, but in essence, I usually like to say I'm kind of carving it out or sharpening it and redefining the lines, but not actually lining them. So a lot of them are broken, and a lot of the lines I'll line over are only just lines where there's shadows or there's a specific contour or curve. And if it gets close enough to another one, I just leave it. Like the top of this shoulder, I didn't need to reline it because once I had this line here, like where it crosses the chin, the jaw, and where it's over by the fingers, once I had those lined in, your eye fills in the blank. So I don't tend to worry about the rest. And you know what? Because this pencil set is full of light fast colors, there's no bright pink, and I just want a bright pink before I say goodbye to this page. And then I might stop this video here and start another one just so we can keep them separate. And I don't overwhelm you all in one video. There's my hot pink. Oh, I have a like fluorescent orange in here somewhere too. Yeah, it's coral color. This is what I wanted. Some of this in the lips. It's fluorescent. I also let myself use fluorescence now. I used to hate fluorescence. I hated highlighters. Now I just love anything bright and colorful and that jumps off the page. Just gonna put that on the cheeks. I am loving this. A bit in the eyes. That is so pretty. Just that little hint of fluorescence under the eye. These eyes are so gorgeous. I can hardly bear it. I'm gonna put a bit of white gel pen highlights, you know, like I do. Where are her actual highlights here? Kind of right in the middle of the pupil. Just really small ones. I actually thought this face was going to be a lot more abstract than it is. So that's interesting. I do love it though. I think it turned out really lovely. There is that. I'll do a couple of like close-up shots for you so you can see it in detail. Sorry for the ever-changing light. I will film another one of these and hopefully you'll see that on YouTube soon as well, because I really want to do, I mean, obviously I love this face, but I really want to do this pose and do like a more full body type thing. I won't draw the dress. I'll try and draw, maybe I'll just do the top half just up here. Maybe that's it. All right, I'll do that in another video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed your little art journaling with me. I'll see you again soon. Bye.
When I'm feeling weak, you're my energy. And when I'm all alone, you keep me company. To my darkness, you're a shining light.